Welcome back to Strong from Home, where I share deep insights and natural healing secrets gathered from the world's top experts. Today, I want to take you into a perspective very few people know about. But once you understand it correctly, it can completely transform your health in just a few days. This is the surprising truth about the connection between salt, blood pressure, and constipation, based on the analysis in the video, The Truth About High Blood Pressure and Salt, by Dr. Robert Siwes. What makes this topic so interesting is that almost all of us have misunderstood salt for many years. There are two truths that most people have never heard of. The first truth, a lack of salt is actually a common cause of constipation. The second truth, sugar is what drives blood pressure up, not salt. Once you clearly understand these two things, you'll be able to explain why some people drink a lot of water but are still constipated, and why people who eat slightly salty foods can still have normal blood pressure. But to really understand the connection between salt and constipation, we need to start with a foundational truth: how precisely the body regulates salt. The body controls salt more intelligently than you think. Sodium is the key factor that determines blood pressure, blood volume, and the activity of every single cell. Because of that, the body always keeps sodium levels in the blood extremely stable. Even a slight drop in sodium can lower blood pressure and create instability within minutes. That's why as soon as salt levels in the blood drop, the body instantly switches to protection mode. It minimizes the loss of salt through urine, sweat, and even stool. This is a survival response programmed to protect blood circulation first. You might wonder, is stool really a pathway for salt loss? The answer is yes. And to understand this clearly, we need to look at a part of the body almost no one pays attention to: the colon, the most powerful salt-regulating organ. Most of us think the colon is just a storage area for stool before it leaves the body. But in reality, the colon is the center for water and salt regulation, and in many low-sodium situations, it can regulate salt even more strongly than the kidneys. The walls of the colon contain countless cells capable of ion exchange. These cells constantly monitor the body's salt levels and adjust every second to maintain internal balance. When the body lacks sodium, the colon immediately activates a conservation mechanism. It starts pulling sodium from the stool back into the bloodstream. And because water always follows sodium to balance osmotic pressure, water gets pulled out too. The result is that the stool loses all its water, becoming dry, hard, and difficult to move. This is not a disease, it's a survival choice. If the body has to choose between keeping stool soft or maintaining blood pressure, it will always choose to protect the blood. When salt is adequate, the body works in the opposite way. When sodium levels are sufficient, the colon opens the valve, allowing some salt to enter the gut. Water follows the salt, helping the stool stay soft, moist, and easy to pass. You can picture it very simply. Salt is the switch that determines the moisture level of your stool. When you eat too little salt, the switch closes, water is kept in the blood, and the stool becomes dry and hard. When you eat enough salt, the switch opens, water enters the stool, and the digestive system moves smoothly. And here is the key point very few people know. Many people with chronic constipation are not lacking fiber, and they're not lacking water either. The problem is that they're lacking salt. If the body doesn't have enough sodium, the colon cannot draw water into the stool. Without water, the stool has no choice but to dry out. Constipation becomes an inevitable result. Just by observing your stool, you can tell how low your salt levels are. Dry, small, pebble-like stool is a very clear sign of salt thirst. A simple solution with surprising results. Make sure you get enough salt, especially mineral-rich sea salt. A warm glass of salted water in the morning and a small glass at night can create noticeable changes within just a few days, especially for older adults or those who are used to eating very low-salt meals. Because sometimes what your body is missing isn't fiber. What your body is truly missing is salt, the essential element your colon is waiting for to open the valve. Once you understand the connection between low salt and constipation, you might think the story of salt ends here. But to prove something important, that you almost never consume too much salt, we need to explore the other two pathways the body uses to eliminate salt. The second pathway, the kidneys. You can think of the kidneys as a super intelligent biological filter that works nonstop 24/7 to keep the salt and water levels in your blood at a perfect balance. Inside each kidney are millions of nephrons, tiny hair-like filtering units that can sense the amount of sodium in the blood with incredible accuracy. When sodium increases, the kidneys open a valve to excrete more salt through urine. When sodium drops, the kidneys immediately close the valve and retain almost all the sodium, releasing only a minimal amount. What's special is that this process doesn't happen alone. On a biological level, the kidneys regulate salt based on the subtle interaction between sodium, potassium, magnesium, chloride, and water. These elements create osmotic pressure, which allows water to move in and out of cells and determines urine volume and its salt content. This is why the kidneys don't just filter salt. They also control total blood volume and blood pressure. This explains why when you eat too little salt, your body easily becomes fatigued, lightheaded, and prone to low blood pressure, because the kidneys are holding onto salt and water to maintain internal balance. The third pathway, sweat. This is the simplest and most visible mechanism, and it's a clear biological signal when the body is losing salt. When you exercise, work outdoors, or are in a hot environment, your sweat glands work hard to cool your body. Sweat always contains sodium because salt helps maintain the structure of water on the skin's surface. That's why after sweating heavily, you often crave salty foods. This isn't a personal preference, it's a biological signal. Your body is telling you that it just lost salt and needs to replenish it to avoid electrolyte imbalance. If you only drink water without replacing salt, you may experience fatigue, headaches, cramps, or dizziness. Not because you're dehydrated, but because you're low on sodium. In summary, the body maintains sodium levels extremely tightly because sodium is a foundational mineral for stable blood pressure, blood volume, water balance in cells, nerve and muscle function, normal digestion. When you lack salt, you're prone to constipation, fatigue, low blood pressure, false dehydration, and digestive issues. When you have excess salt, the body simply excretes it through three pathways: stool, urine, and sweat. This system is so precise that consuming salt by mouth almost never causes a true excess. The body constantly self-adjusts to keep everything in perfect balance. After understanding how the body eliminates salt and the connection between salt and constipation, we can move on to a lesser-known but extremely important truth. Sugar, not salt, is what drives blood pressure up. Understanding this will help you see why controlling sugar is so crucial in preventing high blood pressure and metabolic diseases. To understand the mechanism clearly, you first need to know that blood pressure is determined by three basic physiological factors. The first is stroke volume, the amount of blood the heart pumps out with each beat. When the amount of blood in circulation increases, the heart must work harder to maintain pressure, and conversely, if blood volume is low, the heart has to pump harder to make sure blood reaches essential organs. The second factor is heart rate. A faster or slower heart rate directly affects the total amount of blood pumped per minute, so anything that increases heart rate can raise blood pressure. The third is peripheral resistance, the degree of constriction in the blood vessels. When vessels tighten, blood flow is restricted and blood pressure rises. When vessels relax, blood flows more easily and pressure drops. So how does sugar affect blood pressure? Glucose, a simple sugar, has a strong ability to pull water. When glucose levels in the blood rise, glucose molecules draw water out of cells and into the bloodstream through osmosis. This increases blood volume, forces the heart to pump harder and more often, and directly pushes blood pressure upward. When you consume too much refined sugar or refined carbohydrates over long periods, glucose levels stay high, and the body has to deal with this through several physiological mechanisms. First, the pancreas releases more insulin to move glucose into cells, and at the same time, insulin causes the kidneys to retain sodium and water, increasing body fluid volume and contributing to higher blood pressure. But the body doesn't react only through insulin. Excess glucose also directly affects the cardiovascular system. It stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, causing the heart to beat faster and the blood vessels to constrict, which raises blood pressure even more. At the same time, prolonged excess sugar triggers free radicals and inflammatory substances in the blood vessels, damaging the endothelium, promoting plaque buildup, and making the vessels less elastic. On top of that, high glucose makes platelets stickier, increasing the risk of blood clots, heart attacks, strokes, and other cardiovascular complications. So when blood sugar remains high for a long time, the body must constantly react in multiple ways: increased blood volume, increased heart rate, blood vessel damage, and increased clotting risk. This is why sugar, not salt, is the main factor driving chronic high blood pressure. Unlike salt, the body has no direct way to excrete excess sugar through urine, sweat, or stool. When you consume too much sugar, especially glucose, the body must process it to prevent dangerously high blood sugar levels. At first, glucose is converted to glycogen and stored in the liver and muscles, ready to provide energy when needed. However, once glycogen stores are full, excess glucose can no longer be stored this way. Instead, the body converts glucose into fatty acids and stores them in fat tissue as a long-term energy reserve. This is a biological energy conservation mechanism, but when it happens continuously, it leads to fat buildup in the liver, called fatty liver, and cells become insulin resistant, making blood sugar harder to control and increasing the risk of diabetes and other metabolic disorders. Excess sugar also negatively affects the heart and blood vessels. Prolonged high glucose causes inflammation of the vascular endothelium, thickening the vessel walls, reducing elasticity, and promoting plaque formation. These changes, combined with increased blood volume and heart rate caused by high glucose, create ideal conditions for elevated blood pressure, because the body cannot directly eliminate excess sugar the way it does with salt. Controlling sugar intake through diet is the most effective way to protect blood pressure, blood vessels, and overall health. Once you understand this mechanism, you'll see that sugar is the silent driver of high blood pressure, not salt, as many people believe. What is the best way to control blood sugar? First, the goal is to keep blood sugar stable around 80 milligrams per deciliter, the ideal level at which the body functions most efficiently. At this level, the body doesn't need to release insulin suddenly, reducing the risk of excess fat storage, vascular inflammation, and high blood pressure. In other words, when blood sugar is stable, the heart, blood vessels, and the entire internal environment are protected. To achieve this, you need to change your carbohydrate sources. Reduce as much as possible the foods that create rapid glucose spikes, such as white bread, pastries, soda, candy, and white noodles. These foods make blood sugar skyrocket within minutes, triggering a strong insulin response, prompting the kidneys to retain salt and water, and causing the heart rate to increase and the blood vessels to constrict, leading to easily elevated blood pressure. Instead, choose foods that release glucose slowly, helping blood sugar stay stable. Fresh fruits, vegetables, brown rice, sweet potatoes, and whole grains. They provide steady energy, reduce the amount of insulin needed, and help blood volume, blood pressure, and heart rate stay stable. Research shows that eating carbohydrates with a low glycemic index reduces blood sugar fluctuations and cardiovascular risk. In addition, getting enough natural sodium from sea salt, Himalayan salt, or mineral-rich vegetables is also extremely important. Sodium not only helps maintain stable blood volume, but also supports nerve transmission, muscle contraction, and circulatory function. When the body has enough sodium, the colon and kidneys operate efficiently, blood pressure stays at a safe level, and constipation is reduced. In other words, controlling blood sugar and maintaining sufficient sodium is the dual strategy that helps you stabilize blood pressure, protect your blood vessels, boost energy, and prevent dangerous metabolic diseases without needing medication. I know that by now you already understand the relationship between sugar, salt, constipation, and blood pressure. But to completely clear all doubts about natural salt, let's answer the important question. How does salt regulate blood pressure when blood sugar is at a normal level? The human body is equipped with an extremely sophisticated system for regulating blood pressure to avoid two dangerous situations. If blood pressure is too low, blood cannot reach the brain sufficiently, causing dizziness or fainting within seconds. On the other hand, if blood pressure is too high, it can damage blood vessel walls, cause headaches, brain bleeding, and even stroke. The most important blood pressure regulating system is RAAS, the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, a biological machine connecting the kidneys, lungs, blood vessels, and adrenal glands. RAAS keeps blood volume and blood pressure stable, like an automatic controller that never sleeps. The core of RAAS is sodium, salt. When salt intake decreases, sodium in the blood decreases as well, which reduces water, lowers blood volume, and drops blood pressure. At this point, the kidneys release renin, activating the entire RAAS mechanism. Renin converts angiotensinogen into angiotensin I, then angiotensin I turns into angiotensin II. Angiotensin II causes blood vessels to constrict, directly raising blood pressure. At the same time, the adrenal glands release aldosterone, which helps retain salt and water, increases blood volume, and restores blood pressure. This is a perfect survival mechanism that ensures the body always maintains enough blood flow to the brain and vital organs. If you eat too little salt, RAAS, this must work continuously, causing the heart to beat faster, the nervous system to become stressed, muscles to feel fatigued, and sometimes blood pressure increases in a compensatory reaction. Conversely, when the body has enough or slightly excess salt, RAAS automatically reduces its activity. The kidneys excrete salt and water easily, blood vessels relax, and blood pressure stabilizes naturally without intervention. The accurate biological conclusion is this: salt is the key that helps the body maintain stable blood volume and optimal blood pressure. Salt is not the cause of high blood pressure. The real underlying cause comes from sugar and insulin metabolism disorders, while salt is the protector of blood pressure and cardiovascular health. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. Your time is priceless. And the fact that you spent it learning how the body works, how salt and sugar affect blood pressure, constipation, and heart health is truly valuable. If the knowledge in this video helped you understand your body better, feel more reassured, or simply inspired you to take care of your health every day, please like and subscribe to the channel. This is how you give us more energy so our team can continue creating more healing, easy to understand, and valuable videos. Knowledge about the body is not just information. It's a tool that allows you to take control of your own health. By understanding how salt stabilizes blood pressure or how sugar affects the cardiovascular system, you'll have the foundation to change habits and protect your health naturally and sustainably. See you in the next video, where I'll join you in exploring fresh and insightful perspectives from leading health experts, so your journey of care and healing becomes more solid and natural with each step.